In my opinion, there are 6 key tools that you'll pretty much, no matter what, always need when trying to capture any type of shoot that you will ever work on. This has become my definitive list. There are endless brands out there that you can choose from, but the items themselves don't actually change that much within them. But with that being said, it is important that you do the research to figure out what brands you need to get the right tools for the jobs that you want to do. The cool thing about being a filmmaker is you're taking multiple different arts and putting them into one, right? Sound design, editing, capturing the images themselves. It all comes down into this. And for each of those arts, you need different tools to make all of those happen. And using those tools makes your production value go through the roof, and really it needs to be nothing less than stunning in this day and age when everyone has an iPhone. Choosing a certain brand over another will give you a distinctive look and technical standard that is unique to that company. That's why it's important that you do your research before deciding what product to purchase. So for the purposes of today, I'm going to be going through the gear and products that I have found that work best for me. Feel free to jump around in this video. There is a table of contents in the description down below where you can just click on certain items if you're interested. You'll also see links that bring you to the products that I'm talking about and kind of variations on these products for different price ranges. So if you want to do some research or blow a massive hole in your bank account today, those links will help you do that. Not surprisingly, first on this list, a camera. Everyone knows you need a camera, so I'm not going to spend too much time on this. All that you're really looking for is a camera that will accept interchangeable lenses, lets you have control over ISO, exposure, and shutter speed. That's pretty much it. My filmmaking camera of choice these days is the Sony a7S Mark III. This is a beauty of a camera. As of today, this is the closest mirrorless camera that you can get to a cinema camera without spending a massive chunk of change. And considering what's under the hood on this thing, this is a steal of a deal. The low light capabilities, untouched by any other brand out there in the mirrorless world. Lightning speed autofocus if that's something that you need. Full frame image stabilization, hands down, again, best thing that I've ever seen in a mirrorless camera. And not to mention 10-bit 422 color capabilities, 120 frames a second at 4K, 240 at 1080. Basically that means the image looks really, really good, even in ultra super slow motion. Such a good camera. But if that is a little bit above the budget that you're working with and you want to go with Sony, I also highly recommend the a7 Mark III, and for a low budget shooter, the a6300 is also a great camera. I've brought that camera all around the world. It's a killer camera. I mean, obviously it doesn't have all the features that a camera like this has, but it'll do the job in certain situations. I personally budget about 20% of my total gear cost on the camera, and for some that might seem a little bit low because camera is the most important thing. In my opinion, the camera is not the most important thing. Lenses are the most important thing, and that's usually where I spend my money. So let's move on from cameras to lenses. Lenses are the tool that will make your production value pop, and that's because lenses have way more to do with image quality than the camera does. Even if you have the best camera in the world and put a low quality lens on it, the image is going to come out looking low quality. But if you have a lower quality camera and put a beautiful lens on it with some really nice glass, that image is going to look way better. Good lenses are important to invest in. I'm usually investing about 30% of my total overall film budget on lenses. Another reason to invest in good lenses is they never really reduce in value if you take good care of them. A camera will be outdated within a year or two. Lenses, you can have like lenses for 15, 20 years and they're still like as good as they were when you first got them. And like the optics of lenses don't change. With that being said, obviously I don't have hundreds of thousands of dollars to invest in like the best lenses in the world. When we're on our big commercial shoots, we're renting very expensive lenses that I could never afford. But for the shoots that like everyday shooting for me, I invest in lenses that are good quality, really nice glass. They've got to be fast and they've got to be a good build. The Rokinon Cine DS lenses have a beautiful look to them when you're shooting at like T1.5. Like beautiful images. Obviously, like any fast lens, like a 1.5 prime, like it's gonna look good, but for a cinema lens, this is awesome. Also, the declicked aperture of all cinema lenses is just awesome to have, and they are sharp. They have minimal chromatic aberration and distortion, and it focuses within 10 inches of the front of the lens, so not too bad. By far, these are the cheapest cinema lenses that you will find on the market, hands down. And they're actually comparable when you like go side to side between the super expensive quality next in line cinema lenses. Considering the massive price jump from those to these hold up incredibly well next to those. Now, if I'm needing a lens that is great with autofocus or is a zoom lens for my documentary style filmmaking, like run and gun stuff, I really do try to stay within the Sony ecosystem because I'm using a Sony camera. I want Sony lenses because they're just built to work with each other, and the autofocus is like very, very crisp and smooth, which is important. If you're using other brands with other cameras, sometimes they don't communicate as well. So for me, my number one zoom lens for documentary work is the 24-105 f4 lens. I mean, it's not the fastest lens in the world, but for autofocus, it's beautiful, and it covers everything from kind of the mid-wides to the closes. But the lens that I love the most that's in my like Sony ecosystem is the lens that I'm shooting on right now for this video, which is the Sony 16-35 f2.8. It is a beautiful wide lens. I use it for pretty much any time that I'm doing any type of landscape, architecture, vlogging. This is like my number one vlogging lens. If I'm holding it, hands down, no question, I'm using that. It has to be autofocus, it has to be wide. That's the lens. Next on the list, lights. Lights are absolutely critical in crafting your image. It'll tell your audience how they should be feeling, whether it's dark and moody or whether it's happy and light. It all depends on the amount of light that you're using and the way that you're using your lights. Super quick lesson in lighting here. Pretty much to create a properly lit image, you're gonna need 3 lights. One is a key light, big strong main light. One is a fill light, another light to kind of fill in the shadows that the key light's creating, and then a backlight to separate you from the background. So this is the key light that I'm using right now. I'm using the Aperture 300D Mark II. It is a workhorse of a light. It has so many different customizations to it. Right now, I have the big soft box on it with the egg crate that is creating the nice soft look. If I were to take it off, it would be very harsh and powerful, which is good in different situations. It is a daylight balanced light, so if you do want tungsten light, which is this color, you'll need to put a gel in there. But for the most part, anytime I'm using this, it's pretty much a daylight light. Next is the fill light. I think this is the fill light. Okay, so with the fill light, without. So basically the fill light is just filling in those deeper shadows. So without the light, I have a little bit more shadows here. It doesn't do a whole heck of a lot. You could even use just like a bounce board to bounce off of this light just to fill it in here a little bit. But when I do plug that light in, just takes a second, click, it just does kind of fill in those deeper shadows there. The next light is the backlight. It's creating just kind of a rim around me, mostly on this shoulder, this side of my face. But when I take it off, no more rim on my shoulder. It's still pretty much the same. It's very subtle, but when you do plug it back in and watch it turn on, you'll see that I am separated a little bit more there. It's just, this is kind of the area that you're wanting to work there. Those are all the Felix P360 Pro Plus lights. They are super small. I love traveling with them. They're like the perfect documentary travel kit. For their fill light, I have the softbox on, creating that nice equal soft light kind of to this. But for my backlights, I don't have the softboxes on, but I do have little diffuser domes inside their barn doors, which creates a little bit of a stronger, harsher light, but not incredibly raw, harsh light. Another thing that I love about these little Felix lights is they are continuously dimmable from 2800 to 6500 Kelvin, meaning they match this light, or you can dim them all the way to match this light and anything in between. So they can really be used as anything. Number 4, the ever overlooked and always forgotten about sound. And it shouldn't be that way. Filmmakers should not forget about or not care about sound. In my opinion, it is actually more important than the visual side of things. Believe that or not, that is what I think. If you go to a theater and the sound starts cutting out, it's chopped, you can't really understand, but you can still see the image, you're missing what's going on. But if it was the opposite, and the visuals are a little bit glitchy and you can't quite see what's going on, but you can hear everything and you can hear what everyone's saying, you still understand the story. You will retain your audience longer with bad visuals and better sound than you will with better visuals and bad sound. Even though it only takes up about 5% of the overall budget, where lights, for example, will take up 25%, sound is still so important. Really, there's 3 mics that I'd ever be using. One is the shotgun mic, which I'm using right now, which you can't quite see, but it's literally right here. I use the Rode NTG3 Super Cardioid mic. It's used for any time that you need like broadcast quality audio. This is the microphone that you'll also see in the behind the scenes photos of movies where they have the boom operator with the big fuzzy thing. This is the type of mic that they have in there. It is the crispest, cleanest audio that you can get. The next thing that I use if I'm just vlogging is the Rode Video Mic Pro. This just sits on top of the camera. The last thing that I'd ever be using is wireless mics. They're great for putting on your actors or subjects if they're moving around. The things that these mics don't work for are why you need these. Because if I needed to go turn around over here and talk to you about what's happening over here, you can't really hear me very well until I'm like right under the mic again. So that is where these do come in handy. Not as crisp as these, but they will do the trick. Good sound is important. It is. Number 5 is camera support, and this covers a wide variety of things, but I think it is very important to add on this list because of how crucial it is. So whether that's camera movement or rigging out your camera to like build around the camera cage, and I'm not going to get into that. If you're interested in that, let me know in the comment section down below. That'll be for a different video. But really, camera movement is incredibly important. The tools that you need to support your camera, whether that's the tripod, gimbal, even like drone could be used in this category. Those are tools that will help you get more cinematic and more depth to your shots. So one of the things that I use quite a bit of the time is either the gimbal or the slider. And the slider is used when I can't use the gimbal. And the gimbal is great for getting great big wide vista shots and some cool like smoother shots while running. But it's not great for like smooth close-up texture shots. There's just too many small little movements that your arm makes that you can't really control on the vertical axis of the gimbal, that it just, you see those things. So with a slider, you can be super concise and very deliberate with your movements that you just can't with a gimbal. And it's what every client is wanting now too. Camera movement, they want that. They might not know that it uses a gimbal, but they want that movement. So when you're working on bigger shows, yeah, you'll be working with camera cranes, or when I get to go up in helicopters for clients, like obviously that's like the most epic that you can get, and that's super fun. But just for like the everyday shoots, gimbals are not that expensive. Those are the most priority things in the camera support section. So without further ado, last but not least, computer. Again, super obvious, pretty much everyone that will be watching this has a computer, so I won't go into this too much. But when you're editing, you need to have a computer that is built for editing. So that means getting at least 16 gigs of RAM in there, a good graphics card, and a good processor. If you're gonna be using like slow motion, big files, 4K files, you will need that stuff, or else you will pull your hair out. Regarding editing software, everyone has their preferences. Whether that's like Premiere Pro, DaVinci Resolve, Final Cut Pro, those are kind of the main editing tools that people are using nowadays. Just find a program that works for you, watch some tutorials online, and start editing. So long story short, what you need to be a filmmaker is money. A lot of money. Seriously though. Needless to say, this is not a hobby. The way that I got to this point has been through working. I started out just with that small Sony a6300 shooting little travel things. Now kind of having and like feeling that I pretty much have everything that I need for this type of scale of a show. Like when I'm doing my tourism gigs or my smaller scale commercials or music videos, this is the kit that I'm using, and I feel like this really is all that you really need to be able to do it. If you think that there's anything else that should be on this list that maybe isn't, leave that in the comment section down below. That is super helpful to me, but also to everyone else watching this video and reading your comment. All the products that I've talked about have been put down into the links below, and they are meant simply as a starting point for your research. So if you feel like you're wanting to get some lenses, check out the lenses down below and see what I used. If you feel like that would be a good fit for you, go for it and let me know how that goes and how you're enjoying it. Or if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them. So I really appreciate you taking the time. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give it a like, subscribe to the channel for more content like this, and happy shooting. So thank you very much for watching. Happy trails, and until next time.